The low drone of fluorescent lights filled room 314 at Crestwood Middle School, casting a pale sheen over the rows of battered desks and the worn linoleum floors. It was Thursday, test day in Ms. Ruth Langley's advanced mathematics class, and tension hung thick as chalk dust. 28 students sat poised with sharpened pencils, their eyes flicking between their problem sheets and the rigid posture of their teacher at the front. But Ruth's gaze kept returning, again and again, to the boy in the fourth row, second seat from the window. There sat Elijah Brooks, as always, hunched over his battered spiral notebook, his focus turned inward and away from the lesson, his pen moving in small, sharp bursts, as if racing some invisible clock. The other students, some with the hard-won confidence of perpetual hand-raisers, others slouched with indifference, barely noticed Elijah's quiet world. But Ruth Langley did. She'd noticed for weeks now, the way Elijah seemed miles away, drawing strange symbols in his notebook while she explained quadratic equations. She dismissed it as daydreaming, a lost cause. Elijah Brooks, Ms. Langley's voice rang out, slicing through the quiet like a scalpel. Since you seem to have found something more fascinating than today's lesson, perhaps you'd care to share with the rest of us? A ripple of snickers fluttered across the room. Elijah's shoulders tensed. He didn't raise his eyes. Ms. Langley stepped to the whiteboard, uncapped a marker with a flourish, and began scrawling an equation. This wasn't just any equation. It was a monstrous, multivariable calculus problem, far beyond the scope of 8th grade, a tangle of limits and summations with variables spiraling like vines. Her hand moved with deliberate exaggeration, filling the board with a challenge meant not just for Elijah, but for anyone who dared to tune out her class. "Why don't you come up here, Elijah, and show us what's more important than today's work?" Her voice was measured, but the underlying challenge was unmistakable. Tommy Callahan, the star mathlete and Ruth's perennial favorite, smirked from the front row. "That's college stuff, Ms. Langley," he called out, loud enough for the room to echo with laughter. Elijah finally looked up. For the first time all morning, his eyes met Ms. Langley's, dark and wide, not with fear or embarrassment, but something else, quiet resolve, the calm before a storm. He closed his notebook, stood up, and crossed the room, the soles of his sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. The classroom fell to a hush so absolute it was as if the air itself was holding its breath. He picked up the marker. His hand hovered for a second, then moved with swift, practiced confidence. Numbers and symbols unfurled across the board in a mathematical choreography, each step a logical progression, lines connecting with purpose, a seamless flow of insight and rigor. Ms. Langley watched, arms crossed, expecting a stammer, a mistake, a slow unraveling into confusion. Instead, what she saw stunned her. Elijah wasn't just solving the equation. He was revealing new approaches, lines of attack, alternatives that hinted at a mind thinking 3 moves ahead. In rapid succession, he offered 3 solutions, each more elegant, more sophisticated than the last. His final method, a proof built on an advanced theoretical framework, drew on concepts Ruth herself hadn't encountered since graduate school. He paused, marker trembling slightly now, not with uncertainty in the mathematics, but in the pregnant silence that enveloped the room. Every eye was on him. Tommy's jaw hung slack. Madison Chun, the school's reigning science fair champion, scribbled furiously in her notebook, her eyes darting back and forth between Elijah and the whiteboard. Ms. Langley blinked, words failing her for a rare moment. "Elijah," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "where did you learn this?" Elijah shrugged, glanced at his notebook. "I just see it," he replied. "Numbers talk to each other. Like music, but with patterns instead of notes." Ms. Langley stepped to his desk, picking up the battered spiral. She flipped through page after page of dense, elegant theorems and proofs, work original enough to challenge any university-level mathematician. "All this time," she murmured, "while we thought you weren't paying attention." "I was listening," Elijah replied quietly, "but the problems on the board were already solved in my head. So I worked on other ones." The bell rang, jarring everyone from their reverie. Students gathered their things, but even as they moved, their glances lingered on Elijah, newly aware that something extraordinary had unfolded in their midst. "Elijah, would you stay a moment?" Ms. Langley asked, her voice softer now. He nodded, clutching his notebook to his chest like a lifeline. The classroom emptied. Sunlight slanted through the high windows, striping the floor in bands of gold. Ms. Langley moved to her desk and retrieved a glossy brochure from a drawer, her hands unsteady. She placed it before Elijah, who eyed it warily. "The Davidson Institute," she explained. "They work with profoundly gifted students, young people who see the world differently. Students like you, Elijah." He shook his head. "I'm not. I just understand numbers." Ms. Langley smiled and opened the notebook to a random page. "This is original work on prime number theory. And this," she flipped to another page. "This is a novel approach to the Riemann hypothesis. Elijah, do you realize what you're doing here?" He shifted, uncomfortable. "My mom says I shouldn't show off. People already look at me different enough." The weight of his words landed on Ruth like a blow. How many times had she herself mistaken his quietness for indifference? How many teachers had overlooked the genius quietly blazing in their midst? "Your mother wants to protect you," she said gently. "But hiding your gift, that's not protection. That's imprisonment." A knock at the door interrupted them. Principal Charles DeWitt entered, a thoughtful frown on his face. "Ms. Langley," he said, "I received an interesting email from Mr. Callahan. Something about today's math class." "Principal DeWitt, you should see this," Ruth said, offering Elijah's notebook. His eyebrows shot up as he turned page after page. This is extraordinary. Elijah, did you do all this yourself?" Elijah nodded, fingers drumming the desktop. "These concepts," DeWitt murmured, "some are beyond my own experience, and I taught mathematics at the university before coming here." "That's why I called you in," Ms. Langley said. "Elijah needs more than we can offer." Principal DeWitt nodded. "He does. But before we go further, I'd like him to meet a colleague of mine at the university's math department. If that's all right, Elijah?" Before Elijah could answer, another figure appeared in the doorway. His mother, Ms. Nadine Brooks, in the deep blue scrubs of a night shift nurse, hurried in, worry etched deep on her brow. "I got a message from Tommy Callahan's mom," she said, her voice trembling. "Something about Elijah causing trouble?" "Ms. Brooks, your son hasn't caused any trouble," Ms. Langley said quickly. "He's done something remarkable, something that could change his life, and maybe even the field of mathematics." Nadine stared at the notebook, the lines of concern shifting slowly to confusion and then awe as Ruth and the principal explained what had happened. "All this time," she whispered, running her fingers over the pages, "while I thought you were just doodling." "I didn't want to stand out more than I already do, Mom," Elijah said softly. "You always told me. I always said to keep your head down." She finished for him, tears shining. "But I was wrong, Elijah. I was wrong." Principal DeWitt cleared his throat. "Ms. Brooks, with your permission, I'd like to arrange a meeting with Dr. Marissa Alvarez from the university. She works with exceptional young mathematicians. And if Elijah is interested, the Davidson Institute offers a summer program." "Yes," Nadine interrupted, pulling Elijah close. "Yes, to all of it. No more hiding, Elijah. No more dimming your light." Ms. Langley watched as Elijah's face opened in a smile so radiant it transformed him. For the first time, she saw not just a student, but a mind that might one day change the world. "There's just one thing," Ms. Langley said. "Promise me you'll keep filling this notebook. Someday, Elijah, those margins you scribble in will be published in textbooks." Elijah grinned, unzipping his backpack to reveal a second, brand new notebook. "I started a new one at lunch. I've got some ideas about geometric topology." Principal DeWitt chuckled. "I don't even know what that means. But I think we're all about to learn from you, Mr. Brooks." None of them noticed Tommy Callahan lingering in the hallway, his phone surreptitiously recording the moment. By evening, the video of Elijah solving Ms. Langley's impossible equation would rocket around the internet. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight, for the first time, a quiet boy who had always hidden in the margins stepped into the sunlight. The video hit social media at 8:07 p.m. By midnight, it had amassed over 100,000 views. Tommy's shaky footage captured Elijah's slow walk to the board, the eruption of numbers and logic, the stunned classroom, and Ms. Langley's astonished expression. The hashtags #GeniusAmongUs and #SeeTheQuietOnes trended before sunrise. The next morning, Elijah's walk through the Crestwood halls felt surreal. Students parted before him, not with scorn or dismissal, but with something new: respect. Some even with awe. "Yo, Brooks, Marcus Wright, captain of the basketball team, called out. Why didn't you tell us you were some math prodigy? Elijah, overwhelmed, barely managed a smile. Madison Chin hurried up, clutching her own textbook. I watched that video 15 times. The third solution you did? It's brilliant. Will you join Science Olympiad? Please. Before Elijah could reply, Tommy himself appeared, face red, apology on his lips. Sorry, man. I should have asked before posting. But people needed to see it. Elijah shrugged. Maybe it's time people did. The intercom crackled. Attention, students and staff. Please welcome Dr. Marissa Alvarez from the State University's Mathematics Department, who'll be visiting Ms. Langley's class today. Dr. Alvarez was a formidable presence, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with a warmth that glimmered just below her professional composure. She observed as Elijah worked through another mind-bending problem, then spoke with Ms. Langley in hushed, urgent tones. In 20 years with gifted students, I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Alvarez said, eyes shining. Elijah isn't just solving. He's seeing patterns no one else sees. Elijah, flush with praise, suddenly faltered. But these programs, the Davidson Institute, the university classes, they cost money, don't they? My mom already works 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. I can't ask her for more. Dr. Alvarez smiled gently. Elijah, have you heard of the Fields Medal? It's like the Nobel for math. Minds like yours, communities will compete to support you. Trust me, money will not be a barrier. Just then, Principal DeWitt entered, excitement crackling. Good news. The STEM initiative has offered a full scholarship to any program Elijah wishes to pursue. And local news wants to run a story. Our quiet mathematician is about to become a celebrity. Panic flickered in Elijah's eyes, but Ms. Langley squeezed his shoulder. Remember, no more hiding. Your story could inspire so many others. Dr. Alvarez added, when I was a girl, I never saw anyone like me in mathematics. Representation matters, Elijah. Your visibility could light the way for others. As the bell rang and students filed in for second period, Elijah remained at the board, discussing non-Euclidean geometry with Dr. Alvarez. For the first time, he did not shrink from his classmates' attention. This time, he stood tall, his marker flying, voice clear and certain. From his desk, Tommy Callahan watched with a new kind of awe. Hey, Elijah, he called. Want to show me that trigonometry thing you mentioned? And just like that, the boy who once hid in the margins began to illuminate a path for others. 6 months later, the Crestwood Middle School auditorium was packed for the annual STEM Symposium. Local news cameras lined the back walls. On stage, Elijah stood before a massive display, presenting his first published paper, Novel Approaches to Prime Number Distribution, a Middle School Perspective. In the front row, Nadine Brooks dabbed at tears. Beside her, Ms. Langley sat ramrod straight, pride radiating. Dr. Alvarez nodded, jotting notes. And that's why, Elijah concluded, I believe this approach could unlock new avenues in cryptography and quantum computing. Thunderous applause followed. Principal DeWitt stepped up, beaming. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce that Elijah's paper will be featured in next month's Journal of Mathematical Innovation. At just 13, he's their youngest contributor in history. But Elijah's gaze sought out the students. Tommy's enthusiastic thumbs up, Madison's furious typing, Marcus's quiet admiration. After the ceremony, Dr. Alvarez introduced Elijah to a distinguished man in a tailored suit. Elijah, this is Dr. Wesley Anwar from MIT's Advanced Math program. Dr. Anwar shook Elijah's hand. We've been following your work since that first viral video. Would you like to join our Young Scholars Summer Program? Full scholarship, your future is secure. Nadine Brooks put her arm around her son. He's always been brilliant. The world just needed to see it. That evening, as the auditorium emptied, Ms. Langley found Elijah alone in her classroom, scribbling in his notebook. When I tried to embarrass you that day, she said, I learned more than anyone. Elijah looked up. I learned too. That being different isn't something to hide. It's something to celebrate. Ms. Langley nodded, her eyes wet. Have you decided what to tackle next? The Riemann hypothesis. Elijah's eyes sparkled. Actually, I want to create a new way of teaching math, so others see the patterns like I do. Because I think there are more kids out there, quiet, just waiting for permission to shine. Ms. Langley smiled, heart full. I think that's a perfect place to start. And Elijah, Yes, Miss Langley. I can't wait to see what you do next. Together, they left the classroom. Elijah's footsteps echoed, no longer uncertain. The margins of his notebook were no longer a hiding place, but the launchpad of possibility. 5 years later, the TED Talk stage glowed in amber light as 19-year-old Elijah Brooks adjusted his microphone. The audience, a mosaic of faces from around the world, waited with bated breath. Behind him, a simple slide appeared, the mathematics of inclusion. When I was 13, Elijah began, I was that quiet kid in the back, the one who found safety in silence. He clicked to the next slide, the viral video of a younger Elijah at the whiteboard, solving the impossible equation. That moment changed my life, he continued. But what happened next? That's the real story. He advanced the presentation to a photo of a classroom in Detroit, where young students played with mathematical modeling tools of his own design. 3 years ago, I started the Hidden Genius Project. We've identified over 500 students from underserved communities, kids who might have been invisible, just like I was. The screen filled with faces. Maria Solis, labeled disruptive, but now developing AI to fight climate change. Devin White, once thought to be daydreaming, now visualizing four-dimensional geometry. Sarah Littlebird, whose beadwork inspired advances in computational topology. But for every student we find, there are dozens more, waiting. The talent is there. We just need to learn to look differently. He displayed a photo of Ms. Langley's classroom, now a pilot site for his curriculum. My old teacher, Ms. Langley, once tried to embarrass me with an impossible problem. Today, she trains other teachers to recognize genius in every form. Because sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in the margins. He showed data, test scores climbing, confidence blooming, students finding their voices. We're not just teaching math, Elijah said, passion building. We're teaching that differences are superpowers, that uniqueness is a gift. He clicked to a final slide, an equation. Visibility plus opportunity x belief equals transformation. That's the most important formula I've learned. Not just for one student, but for generations. A standing ovation erupted, waves of applause rolling through the auditorium. Elijah held up his old notebook. To every student who feels invisible, we see you. There's a place at this podium for you. As the applause roared, Elijah's phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Langley. Just watched your talk with my new class. We found another one. Her name is Amara. She reminds me of you. Elijah smiled, his mind already leaping ahead, rearranging his schedule. He knew that sometimes all it took was one person to see the magic in the margins. And so the mathematics of inclusion, of seeing, nurturing, and believing, wasn't just a theory anymore. It was a revolution, quiet at first, but growing, one hidden genius at a time. Later that week, Elijah walked once more through the familiar halls of Crestwood Middle School. Only now, the walls bore framed newspaper articles featuring him, and a new banner hung above the entrance. Home of the hidden genius in it. IATF. Students whispered excitedly as he passed. Some stopped him for high fives. Others just stared, wide-eyed, like they'd seen a legend step off the screen. But Elijah wasn't there for a victory lap. He had come for someone else. Ms. Langley waited by the door of room 314. She was older now, a few more silver strands in her hair, but her eyes still carried that fierce spark of conviction. She's inside, she said softly. Her name's Amara Benton, 11 years old, transfer student, quiet, brilliant. No one believed her, until yesterday. What happened yesterday? Elijah asked. She solved a pattern sequence in under 30 seconds that stumped 2 teachers and an AI assistant. He smiled. Sounds familiar. He stepped inside. There, seated near the window, was a girl with deep brown skin and wide, guarded eyes. She had a pencil behind one ear and a lined notebook filled with doodles, at least what most would call doodles. Elijah recognized the symbols. Mathematical matrices, fractal growth patterns, recursive geometry. Hey, he said gently, crouching beside her desk. Mind if I take a look? Amara hugged the notebook tight. Everyone thinks I cheat, she said, or that I'm weird. Elijah nodded slowly. I know what that's like. They said the same about me. But you're not weird, Amara. You see the world differently. That's not something to hide. That's something to build with. He handed her his old notebook, the original one, the one with worn edges and smudged ink. She opened it carefully, reverently. Her eyes widened as she flipped through pages of theorems, diagrams, and messy brilliance. I used to sit right where you're sitting now, Elijah said. And I thought the world would never see me for who I really was. Until one day, someone gave me a chance. He glanced at Ms. Langley, who had stepped quietly inside. That someone was a teacher who finally looked past the silence and saw the light. Amara looked up. Her expression had shifted, no longer fearful, but curious. Hopeful. Elijah stood. Would you like to come with me this summer? To a place where everyone thinks like you do? Where they don't laugh when you talk about number spirals or infinite primes? She hesitated. I'd like that. I'll be your mentor, he said. We'll build something new. Together. Weeks passed. The Hidden Genius Summer Initiative launched with 30 students from across the country. Under Elijah's guidance, and with support from the university, the Davidson Institute, and a rising number of grassroots sponsors. Each student dove into complex ideas once thought inaccessible to middle schoolers. Combinatorics, cryptographic modeling, AI-informed pattern recognition, and even chaos theory. The media buzzed. Time magazine called Elijah the Renaissance mind of Gen Z. Wired dubbed his initiative the math movement America forgot it needed. But Elijah remained grounded. In the quiet hours, after the lectures and workshops, he sat with Amara and the others, answering questions, challenging their ideas, encouraging them to think beyond the page. One night, Amara hesitated outside the dormitory commons, notebook clutched to her chest. Elijah, she said, do you think people like us, kids who grow up with barely enough, can really change the world? He didn't hesitate. Not only can we, he said, but we must. Because we understand what it's like to be invisible, and that makes us the best ones to see others. She nodded, eyes glinting with resolve. I'm going to rewrite the math curriculum someday. For kids who learn like me. He smiled. I believe you will. 3 years later, Amara Benton, now 14, took the stage at the Global STEM Youth Summit. She presented a dynamic visual framework for teaching multidimensional geometry through augmented reality, a system she co-designed with Elijah. The crowd gave a standing ovation. Sitting front row, Ms. Langley wiped tears from her eyes, whispering to the woman next to her. She reminds me of someone I once misjudged. Elijah, now 22 and a PhD candidate at MIT, stood quietly at the back. He didn't need the spotlight. His joy came from what he saw on stage, a chain reaction started in the margins of a notebook, now igniting the minds of the next generation. After the summit, a small boy, maybe 8 years old, shyly approached him. Mr. Brooks, the boy said, I saw your video. I think I see numbers like music too. Elijah knelt to meet his eyes. Then you, my friend, are exactly who we've been waiting for. Years from that moment, textbooks would tell the story of a young black boy in room 314 who solved an impossible equation and unlocked something far greater than numbers. He unlocked the power of being seen. His work would revolutionize how math was taught, how giftedness was understood, and how schools viewed quiet students. He would go on to win the Fields Medal. But more than that, he would mentor hundreds, then thousands. And each one, in their own time, would change the world in their way. Because Elijah Brooks didn't just teach them to solve problems. He taught them to believe in themselves, in patterns, in potential. And from the margins of a forgotten notebook, a movement was born. Not one built on prestige or privilege, but on the quiet, steady rhythm of minds that had once been told they were too different, now lighting the path for everyone else to follow.